Travel Market Life.
Hello and welcome to Travel Monthly Review Show, May 2024, with our expert panel, Claire Steiner, Will Plummer and James Clarke, with a special guest this episode, Cressida Sergeant from Traveltek. In this episode, we'll be deep diving into the cruise sector, the latest industry news and developments, opportunities and challenges for the sector, the latest insights and trends from Andy Harmer at CLIA, a travel agent's perspective with Ellie Fowler from the travel business, and of course, we cannot end the show without our quick quiz. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
Hello, welcome back, Claire Steiner. So over to you first. You were in Amsterdam. How was the party? How did it all go, the hen party?
You know, it was, as I predicted, it was relatively sensible for a hen party, but we had a lovely time, despite the weather, because it did rain most of the time. But of course, Amsterdam is fantastic for being able to travel around. The public transport there is brilliant. And we did all sorts of things, like spent ages at the Wright Museum looking at some of the old masters, and a highlight for me was the Anne Frank's house, which I just found very moving. And I'm glad I've done that. That's been on my bucket list for a while. So I had a great time. But yes, back now and happy that the sunshine is finally here.
Lovely to have you, Miss Claire Steiner. Thank you very much for joining us again. And over to James Clarke. Hello, welcome back.
Hello, Ryan. Hello, Claire. Yeah, great to be back. Hope you're all well. It's been fairly quiet for a few weeks for me. I'm usually the one who's telling everyone where I've been and what I've been up to. It's been quite nice to spend some time in the office, catch up with the guys, and yes, get a busy few weeks now ahead. I'm off to New York tomorrow, working out of our New York office for a week, and then I'm back, and then it's CLIA, the CLIA conference in Southampton. So it's busy few weeks ahead.
All go, and over to Will. Hi, welcome back, Will. How's your week's been?
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Claire. Hey, James. Very good, actually. It's come around very quick. Work trip to Boston, US, Barclays Travel Forum in London yesterday, and just head down and working away, but all good. And like Claire says, great to see the sun finally shining in the UK, because it's a different place when it is.
Absolutely. The spring has sprung. I've been to the Brecon Beacons and I'm looking forward to our next long bank holiday. I'm heading up to Snowdonia. Don't ask me what the name is in Welsh, because I really still can't pronounce it. But over to introduce our guest panelist. It's great to have you here. Cressida Sergeant, a CCO at Traveltek. Thank you for joining us today. So how are things going with yourself?
Yeah, hi, Ryan. So thanks very much for inviting me today. Great to be here. All good. Similar to the guys on the call, I've had a busy week. Just got back from Madrid. So we did a sales conference over there, flew some of our team over from Canada and Australia. So we all got to spend some time together. And the highlight of the week was actually we all learned to make tapas. So we did a cookery course together last week, which was great fun.
Excellent. Fantastic. Are you doing a lot more of this now within the business, sort of bringing your teams together in remote locations and doing some of these experiences as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a remote first company. So we probably cover about 7 countries across the globe, and we're 24/7 as a company because we have customers all over the world. But yeah, really important that we make sure that we make time for face-to-face. So where our head office is in Glasgow, we got all our team in a few weeks ago. We did a crazy golf session with everyone and got people from across the UK and Europe to travel in. But yeah, that was just the sales team specifically last week in Madrid, but it was good.
How fantastic. So tell us a little bit about Traveltek.
Yeah, so Traveltek, we've been going for 25 years. We are a leisure technology specialist. We run across multiple products. So we are in the flight, hotel, transfers, car hire business, but I guess we are synonymous with the cruise industry. That's how we're well known. And we have market leading tech when it comes to desktop solutions for agents. And we also have an API as well, which, although sounds very technical, that effectively means we bring all of the data from the cruise lines together into a single aggregated API that a number of customers across the globe utilize.
And does that mean you're going to be going to glamorous Southampton for the CLIA convention as well?
I'm not personally, but some of the team members will be down there. But I'm actually hoping to go over to Sydney. So I've definitely bagged the better option when it comes to CLIA this year. So I'll be heading over there. And we try and make sure that we go to as many of CLIA events over the year that we can do.
This is all about cruise, so we're going to be drawing on your specialist knowledge as well as the rest of the panel as we dive a little bit deeper into what's happening and evolving in that marketplace. But first, I thought I'd pick up some industry news.
Travel Market Life.
So, gender pay gap eliminated for most travel industry roles. Is this a bit of an exaggeration or is it a reality? The gender pay gap in the travel industry has been eliminated for most roles, but stark differences remain at the top levels. Research from C&M Travel Recruitment found that the gender pay gap overall marginally narrowed in 2023, with the typical female working in the travel taking home 11.2% less than their male equivalent last year, compared to 11.5% in 2022. Is this a good thing? Is this actually working towards full equality? Claire, did you see this story here?
I did. No, listen, it's a step in the right direction. I'm not going to deny that. It's always good to see progress, but it's still not enough. 11%, there should be 0%, right? So that for me is one issue, particularly since at a lower level, at the bottom of the pyramid, if you like, we tend to be 60, 70% female. So actually the fact that the majority of our younger staff are women and are still earning less than their counterparts is just so wrong. So we need to do better and we have to do better. So progress, yes, is always good to see. I also think there needs to be a little bit of I guess, sort of context put into those senior level roles as well, because we still don't. I mean, how many women actually were going for those jobs for a start, and so there needs to be a little bit of context there as well. And Cress and I have had conversations about this in the past, and Cress is a fantastic advocate for equal pay. So I'm going to hand over to her in a second to say what they do at Traveltek, because it's brilliant. But I've said it before, we need to see more women coming through the ranks. We are starting to see it. And I think, that we will, over the years, see more progression from women. Cruise actually is a great sector where we do see women at that C-suite level who are earning equivalent, or definitely should be earning equivalent of their male counterparts. So more to be done, but it's always good to see a little bit of progress.
How about you then, Cress? I mean, what do you see as from a woman in the sector, C-level executive yourself as well? Why is there still such that difference? What is the justification for that difference? And what are you doing at Traveltek to try to reduce that difference?
Well, first of all, I still think that it's amazing in 2024 that we're still having this exact same conversation. And I find it incredible that it's even on our agenda. Interestingly, the FT just released something a couple of days ago where they actually said in the UK holistically, there is now a 9% gender pay gap across all industries. So actually, I think travel probably do outpace that. But Claire's point there around context is really important here, because it's not about the 2 and the 3% at lower level. Of course, we need to address that. But it's more the fact that when you look and it's the 40 plus, and I'm talking age there, that's where the gap really starts to open. And the challenge for me is, a lot of women have children. They come out of the industry at that stage. I then think we don't do a good enough job of getting women back in at that level. And I genuinely don't just think that that's a company problem. I also look to the government here and I think, well, actually, when I think back to when I had my first child, statutory pay, so you're getting 13 weeks of, not much, 90%. And then you go down to, I think, £120 a week. How do people live on that? They don't. They have to come back to work. But then as the mum, you're constantly the one who's doing that juggling with nursery drop-offs, pickups. The kids are always sick at that stage. So then I think as a company, that's really difficult because you're trying to give that flexibility. And I've definitely been on the end of definite bias feedback where people think, well, just because you've then had a baby, you don't have any ambition about you and you don't want to go through the ranks. So I think there are systematic barriers there with the bias that then exists. I also think then there is a lack of women above you that then can really kind of pull you through and give you that flexibility that you need for those few years in your life. And unless you've actually done that jump, it's very difficult to find people that understand how hard those challenges are. And I think give you that flexibility and support. And that's one of the things at Traveltek. It's not just about the pay, but it's about making sure that when women do come back from maternity leave, they do get that support. I remember being thrown in on day one. I worked for a FTSE 250 company. Day one, after 7 months off, right, Cress, we need to make a decision about whether we're going to spend on this promotion. I'm thinking, I can't even turn my computer on today, let alone make these decisions. So that's the challenge. I think businesses are not very good at bringing people back in after they've been on mat leave. Yes, of course, it is about the pay, but it's also about actually addressing the holistic issue here, because that is why we have such a problem at that mid-level. And if you don't fix it at mid-level, you stand no chance at fixing it at senior level, and you stand zero chance at fixing it at board level.
Yeah, no, I completely see that. And obviously, as you say, with women needing to juggle so many things, including family life with such young children, it is a challenge to re-enter the workplace. And there's so much to catch up on after so long away. It's bad enough for some of us for a long weekend. I certainly suffered this May with the public holidays, let alone being off for 7 months. But thanks for those contributions there, Claire and Cress. And, you know, if anybody out there would like to contribute what they're potentially doing in regards to the gender pay gap, we'd love to hear from you. So please email us, team@travelmarket.life. Coming up next, we're going to be looking deep into the cruise sector.
Travel Market Life.
So joining me now is Andy Harmer, Managing Director of CLIA UK and Ireland. Thanks, Andy, for joining us. Now, you released some really fascinating data into the cruise industry and how that's been evolving really over the last year, and particularly how that's been growing overall for the sector. And what is particularly interesting is the total number of cruises that have taken has rose from 1.7 million in 2022 to 2.3 million in 2023. What does this mean for the industry, and what are we expecting from 24?
Yeah, so our data looks back on the previous year. So this is 2023 data, and what we do is we collect all of that data directly from the cruise line so that we can have that verified. And I think it summarizes what we all felt 2023 was like, which was a bit of a moment for the cruise industry. So, you know, our recovery from our years of COVID was quicker than we thought. We knew that the British public loved to take a cruise holiday and that they would be keen to get on board as quickly as possible again once we restarted operations. I think we have seen a significant increase in the number of people who are trying a cruise for the first time, and that's reflected in those figures. So not only is it a big increase on 2022, but it's also a big increase on our last biggest year, which was 2019, when we were just around the 2 million figure. And some of that is because we're capacity led. So actually, we've seen an increase in the number of ships being launched over the last 3 years, but that's managed growth, about 3.4% each year. But a lot of it is the fact that the British and Irish are trying a cruise for the first time. And I'd love to say that's happened very quickly, but actually it's probably been 150 years in the making, in that, you know, we've always been a great nation for maritime. Our interest in cruising has grown over the past 5 to 10 years, but we really have seen that rapidly increase since 2019 and after the COVID years. And we're really enjoying that moment of people trying to cruise for the first time, because, of course, most people, once they've cruised once, will cruise again. So that gives us a good opportunity and a good start for 2024 and beyond as well.
I mean, I know that 2020-21 was a pinnacle year for cruise, for being able to introduce so many new people to that sector. And there was a bit of a fear that you might see a massive drop off. But looking at these numbers, we are seeing that people are picking up that cruise again for a second, third, fourth time.
Yeah, I think it looks like it's that sustained growth. And as you say, it's difficult to capture what some of the trends in 1 year's data, but the data seems to be supporting what we're hearing, which is that from our travel agent partners, particularly, who play a pivotal role in the distribution of cruise holidays, they are telling us that people are certainly switching to cruise. I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think, firstly, we're perceived very much as offering great value for money. We are one of the most inclusive holiday types that you can take. And I think value and the value proposition has really grown and developed over the past couple of years. But I think, secondly, people tried a cruise maybe in summer of 2021 when there were very few other options. So we had lots of ships sailing around the UK waters in summer 21. And so I think that attracted an audience that maybe we wouldn't have reached before. But then we've had that ongoing investment by the cruise industry in new ships and new features, new dining, new entertainment, etc., across their existing fleet. That really means that we've been listening to our customers, we've been listening to the guest feedback, we've created holidays that are incredibly desirable, taking people to amazing places, and all at great value for money. So I think as a value proposition and as a holiday choice, we've certainly seen in 2023 figures that message is getting through and that we're attracting a record audience.
Now let's deep dive into some of the other numbers that you've got here, and this is really around sort of the booking patterns and interest of your cruisers to date. That exploration destinations saw a significant increase, 53% in passenger numbers. Can you tell me what exploration destinations are, and what is this telling us about the market at the moment?
Yeah, it's a really interesting stat, actually. So we knew that we had seen lots of interest in expedition growing, and I think people are looking at bucket list destinations. They're looking at places that maybe they've thought that they would like to travel to, but have now made the decision that they will now travel to. And expedition cruising is one of those holiday choices where we take guests to the Arctic, to Antarctica, to places like the Galapagos, to Borneo, to the Kimberley region of Australia, etc. So these are incredible places. And we have genuinely seen an interest in demand for that. But we've also seen, again, investment by the cruise industry in ships that can take our guests there. And they are certain type of ships. And that investment means that we now have that increased capacity to take people there. So I think we are therefore seeing that translate into numbers. Those figures don't tell the total expedition story, because actually expedition ships can go to places that aren't necessarily aligned with expedition cruising. So actually some of them sail in Europe, some of them around places like Scotland, for example, which won't show up in those figures. But we have seen that interest. And I think it's interest that comes from the destinations themselves, the wildlife, the scenery, that sense of being off the beaten track, but also that sense of traveling with very like-minded people, which again has always been an appeal of cruising. So these ships generally take around 200 to 300 guests, so they're smaller. They have a smaller guest number on board. And as I say, like-minded people traveling to amazing places. And that's the increase that we've seen.
Now, one of the other interesting aspects is the demographics. Now, we know the boomer generation has a lot of disposable income. They're looking at a lot more focus on cruises and being able to tick off a lot of these bucket list destinations. However, the age of cruises is dropping from 55.1 years to 56.1. While it's just a year, is it a big thing for the industry? What does it mean in the grand scheme of things?
It is a big thing for the industry. So down to one of its lowest levels for as long as I can remember, actually. And I think it reflects the fact that, again, the cruise industry has focused on increasing the demographics that would be interested in taking a cruise holiday. So one of the changes that we've seen over the past 10 years in shipbuild is that we've been able to build slightly bigger ships if we want to. And that allows the cruise lines to then put on board those ships more entertainment venues, more dining, more activities, more family facilities. So that at certain types of year, on certain types of ship, they will attract families and younger cruisers. We have said for the past couple of years that there is a cruise for everyone. And I think this development, this opportunity to take families and younger couples onto our cruises would change slightly the demographic of Brits who take a cruise. So it is, as you say, just 1 year, and it does bring it down slightly, but I think it does reflect that ability of the industry to attract younger couples and families. But I think there's slightly more to it than that, in that the industry actually is geared up regardless of age for everybody. And so actually in the UK, we have one of the oldest average age of cruiser in the world. We have brands specifically for people over 50, for example, that sell. So there is that mix, but I think we'll see that continue to ebb and flow. But actually, we have an aging population in the UK. We may not see that average age come down very much in the next few years, but I think it does reflect that slight shift in our appeal.
I mean, this is the average age. So you've got people who are a lot older and people who are a lot younger, which is obviously, as you say, fantastic. Even if the age is getting, the population's age is getting older, for as long as I guess this average age doesn't change much, you are covering a wider span of demographics, which is very exciting. And I guess tapping into that, and you did sort of like adhere to this. Just to mention, you did make reference to this just now about the ship builds and how that's diversifying. That 28% of cruisers are part of this larger multi-generation groups, and we're seeing much more of sort of group travel across generations now. And from your research, that 3 or more age categories is part of those multi-generational groups. Why is it becoming popular? And what particular developments that are really attracting the younger generations?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, we saw that change in appeal to multi-generational groups sort of in 2022, and we wondered whether it would be temporary. We wondered whether that was a reflection of the fact that for a couple of years we weren't able to travel nor spend as much time as we would want with our wider family. So therefore, that may have led to everyone cruising together in multi-generational groups in 2022. But actually, we've seen that even strengthen further in 2023. And I think, yes, as you say, some of that refers to the fact that the cruise industry now appeals to multi-age groups. It appeals to a much wider demographic. And I think the unique thing about the cruise industry and a cruise holiday is that during the day, people can go off safely on the ship and do their own thing. And then they can come together for lunch and dinner, talk about their day, have an evening or an afternoon together and really share the moment while still having the opportunity to create the holiday that they want. The same is true in destination. So when the ship is in port, again, we have family-focused excursions, or we have excursions that would appeal to different age groups, or, of course, the guests can debark and explore as a group themselves. So I think much of it is down to that product development. I also think, we talk a lot about age, but actually one of the shifts we've seen separate to age is actually the mentality of our guests, because even if you're an older guest, actually that spirit of adventure, that spirit to go to multiple destinations, to do lots of different things, to go off the beaten track, continues to be a thing that we know our guests like to do. And I think, again, that helps us to appeal to that wider demographic.
So a lot of juicy nuggets going on there from that research. And I know, James, you guys at Travelzoo were involved in part of that. And, what was particularly exciting and interesting for you guys?
So it's nice to hear Andy reflect upon so many of the points that we spoke about on the day. But so from our perspective, it was twofold. It was to hear and work with CLIA on sharing all their data from 2023, and us in partnership with CLIA and MMGY to conduct some research into particularly new to cruise. But I think the two biggest points that are really important that when we consider the UK cruise market is they're order booked for this year. So they've got 8 ships launching in Europe this year, particularly in the UK, and 2 of those are very heavy, large, lower berth ships. You've got the Sun Princess, which is over 4,000. You've got the Royal Caribbean ship, that's over 5,700. So the additional capacity that's being entered just into kind of like the UK with the ships that we're operating around, that's over 23,000 cabins, lower berths that need to be filled. And a lot of these itineraries from these ships will be operating in and around Europe and ex-UK. So there's a lot of capacity being entered into the market. And beyond that, between 2024 and 2028, there's 34 new ships hitting our shores. So capacity is going to be one of probably an opportunity facing all of these cruise partners, but at the same time, there's a challenge there, and that capacity ultimately needs to be filled. How are they going to fill it? As Andy said, it's about those multi-gens. It's about bringing new to cruise over and attracting a much younger audience into cruise, because they, as Andy quite rightly said, if you can get them in at a younger age, they're going to repeat cruise because the experience is so wonderful.
Now, Cress, just before we came on air, you were talking about the fall in average age. Does that correlate with what you're seeing and their fall of age there at CLIA's research?
Yeah, so actually last year through the Traveltek platform, the average age of a cruiser was 48 that we processed last year. And I think that what was quite evident to me is I've been at Traveltek for nearly 6 years now. In the last couple of years, so many of our customers, who obviously are the travel agents and OTAs, who either are looking at cruise as a strategic pillar of growth within their business, or also companies that have never sold cruise looking to then add cruise as an additional product. So again, we've seen it as the largest growth area within the travel industry over the last couple of years. And I think it's the fact that CLIA have said they need to attract 4 million new to cruisers. They need to try and find new avenues and new brands to attract those new to cruise customers.
And do you see that as a challenge, needing to attract that quantity of people? Because that's quite a volume, isn't it, to try to bring in? And is there the product there that could actually tempt people away from their fly and flop?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge amount, isn't it? They say over the next few years, it's going to be between 19 and 43% capacity increase over the next 5 years in cruise. That's a significant, James has touched on some of those numbers there. I actually think the cruise industry have thought outside the box on this one. You know, you've seen sponsorship at the BAFTAs. You've seen the likes of Royal Caribbean taking on Fortnite, which I thought was really innovative of them, of creating Fortnite characters on cruise ships, which again appeal to a younger audience. And I also think they've done a wonderful job, the cruise industry, of really creating that that PR and that above the line noise here as well. You can't fail to have missed Messi in Miami. Obviously, I've got 2 kids that are very into football, so I hear all about this. But I think that again was something that then my kids were like, "Oh, we should go on one of those cruise ships, Mum." And I think that again is very clever because, you know, when it comes to booking family holidays, you know, yes, of course, depends how your family do your booking, but the kids do have a say on what you want to do. And I absolutely see that multi-generation being a brilliant idea as well for taking the grandkids and the parents away. It's an ideal type of holiday, really, that people can choose what they want to do because there are so many activities and so many different stops. You don't have to disembark. You can stay on and take advantage of that. And I think the innovation that the cruise industry have done, not only in attracting new people, but also with the innovation on the cruise ships, I think has been stunning the last few years.
I mean, there's been quite a few news reports that I've collected over the last couple of months and really interesting. One being, you know, almost half of luxury cruise passengers are expecting to spend more. 43% say that outlay will increase this year. That was from a specialist agency, Panache Cruises. So I guess there's that taste for it, and then people wanting to go that bit further with their experience of cruise and the diversity of products. But then also at the same time, cruise.co.uk saw that there had been an increase in the popularity of shorter cruises of 2 to 6 nights. So it does sound like there's quite an array of product. How can agents handle such a plethora of options there for their customers? And, you know, I mean, a lot of it's sold through agents, isn't it? So what are the ways in which agents can have access to this product and actually really help their customers find the right product for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think Andy touched, didn't he, on the fact that there's a cruise for everyone. And I think that's a great statement because there absolutely is. And I think plenty of the cruise lines, and especially in the Mediterranean, offer brilliant shorter itineraries where you fly into some of the European ports. So, you know, your Barcelonas and your Genoas, and you can go and do those short durations, some fabulous itineraries around the Greek islands as well. So it's great for people if they want to do 3 or 4 nights and then they also want to maybe combine it, you know, the traditional kind of, you know, beach and cruise is a good option for people to be able to do. So again, I think there is something for everyone. We've definitely seen a lot of new entrants into the luxury end of the market as well over the last few years. I genuinely think people kind of talk around recession looming. That is a part of the market that I don't think will be affected by any of those economic downturns. So I believe that, again, that side of the market will continue to grow. But I think if you look across the cruise landscape, there absolutely is something for everyone. But because it is a larger ticket item, I think the trade have a huge part to play here because it's so important that people get on the right cruise ship. And that's where you need somebody that can actually educate. And again, I think CLIA and the industry have done a great job of getting agents onto the cruise ships. They can experience this. And again, I think it's the type of holiday where, yes, we are starting to see more people ask around online cruise. And that's definitely been a technical growth that we've seen over the last year or so. But I think we are some way off yet on people just going on, inputting credit card details and buying cruise in the same way they do fly and flop holidays at the moment.
James, what are you seeing from that perspective then of travellers looking to book and what sort of bookings that they're going for? Because you mentioned that there's going to be a lot of deals, there's going to be overcapacity. Is this going to undervalue some of the products that are on the market?
So it's a really good question, Ryan. And actually, when I was up on stage, it was one of the questions that was asked of me around value was pointed out in the research that we shared with everyone at CLIA at our breakfast. And the question was around, but cruises already show great value. And I said, I don't think this is referring to the monetary side of cruises, because actually cruises do offer fantastic value for holidayers, and when you compare it, particularly in average cost per night, cruises are lower and cheaper than the average holiday. So there is that side there. But one of the challenges which I feel that cruise can tackle very well is the undersold convenience of cruising. So, and I gave the example to the room of, okay, so you're a family of four, and you think booking a flight, going abroad and doing a week's beach break is the standard thing that you do. So you book it, but then you forget that you've got to get to the airport 3 hours before, and you have all the money at parking at the airport, then the 3 hours at the airport, then you may even get delayed, you have those problems and stress. If you've got 2 kids or 3 kids nagging at you, then you get there, then you've got your transfer, could be an hour, could be 2 to the hotel, you've got your hotel, then you get your bill at the end. And then you've got the same return journey on the way back, which is why always everyone's more excited before they go, and obviously they're low on the return. Now, compare that to the journey of potentially traveling to Southampton on boarding and being on board a ship and enjoying the entertainment or the activities on board within a few hours. And now that cruising is becoming more all-inclusive, and things like gratuities and some of the stigmas that cruise had previously are being eradicated, is making it and a completely great value option from start to finish. What I shared with everyone on that day was that undersold convenience is probably their biggest opportunity, not just for the new to cruise, but also probably for the younger generation on those really fun cruises, to say, hey, you don't have to go to the airport and do this. You can just jump straight on and basically get the party started.
Actually, that's an interesting point, because I do remember this is pre-pandemic, about the cost of cruise really came down to all the tips and service charges and all that came down. What are the cruise lines actually doing then to minimize that at the moment? Or are they encompassing it within their sales products? What are they doing there?
It depends on the line that you're booking with, but a vast majority of cruise operators now, in their deals, gratuities will be included. All taxes and gratuities will be included. So the price you see is the price that you're generally paying. And if you're on an all-inclusive cruise with gratuities and taxes included, then literally there is not an extra penny to pay unless you start buying ad hoc experiences or onboard, kind of extras.
I mean, it's fascinating, particularly of how it's helped really a lot of travel agents. Not just travel said that they saw sales surge during January by 64% year on year, which is just phenomenal. And I've heard of some agents not just booking for 2024 or 2025, but now into 2026. So for some of the product that some people want, particularly if they're going for multi-group, multi-generational, that they actually need to be thinking and planning so much farther in advance to make sure that the product that they want is actually available. And I guess that some of these multi-generational cruise ships, there aren't a huge number of those out there that actually cater for that full market, are there, Cress? That people do need to think much more cleverly about when they're going and what they want for their holidays.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are plenty of companies out there that will cater for the multi-generation, but I think interestingly what we've seen is certainly, post the big C, we've seen a lot more people book further out on cruise. So exactly that, we're seeing people book 3 years in advance, especially for particular destinations like the expedition cruises. Alaska again is another one that is particularly popular, and again certain seasons that people want to travel in. So we definitely are seeing bookings much further out. One, of course, of the big challenges there, and it's why it's beneficial to book with an agent when it comes to these further out bookings, is that you can't get the air to match up. So that's the challenge for a lot of customers wanting to do that. So that is the benefit of obviously booking with an agent that will then look after you.
That's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I've looked at some of those expedition cruises. I think I've made a long list of those that I want to do. So I don't even know where to start. I've only ever been on one cruise myself, and that was thanks to the Institute of Travel and Tourism that actually took us there on their annual conference a couple of years ago. So I sailed the high seas of the English Channel, which was wonderful. Just being on a boat like that size was just incredible. And Claire Steiner, you're obviously there. You're with us at that event. Have you been on other cruises? Is there a particular cruise that you've enjoyed?
Do you know what? That was my first time actually doing a proper cruise like you, Ryan, and it was an interesting experience, wasn't it? Because it was that kind of being let out of after the big sea. But I actually have been to a few on-board cruise ships. My father worked in Bermuda, very luckily, for a few years, about 30 years ago, and he often got invited onto these sort of cruise ships when they came in. And that was quite eye-opening for me because that was a very different demographic. I won't say any more than that, but that was quite eye-opening and slightly put me off cruising. But I think, I just to add into everything that everyone was saying, I think, yes, multi-generational. We know multi-generational travel has been big in the last few years. But for me and friends of mine, actually, solo travel. So particularly for women, I think I've got a number of friends, and my mother is one of them, now included, that actually have been converted to cruise as a way of solo traveling because there's a protection there, you feel safer there. Also, it's that slow travel. James alluded to that, getting to the airport, 300 suitcases. My mum's off to Japan, and actually the thought for her, and she's doing a cruise around Japan, is she doesn't have to pack every day to move to somewhere else. You can just get off the cruise ship, go and do it, get back on and to bed. So for someone who's in the older demographic, that boomer demographic, that's brilliant for her and the solo side. I would say also, though, from the solo side, what she's seen, and she's as a recent convert to cruises, is there's more deals for solo travelers now. So before you used to have to pay quite high extras for solo cabins, and actually I think the cruise ships have seen the opportunity and are giving these sorts of deals so that people who do want to travel on their own aren't having to pay an additional huge fee for the privilege of doing so. So solo travel, I think, is another thing that is a benefit to cruise.
I mean, one of the other trends is, I say, with diversification, but also themed. The big nude boat is launching next year. Yes, in partnership between Norwegian Cruise Line and Bare Necessities, a specialist nude cruise travel company. Will, I was thinking you and your wife might want to go away next year to celebrate your anniversary.
I will certainly put it to her later. There may be some reluctance from certain parties. Let's just put it like that. So thank you, Ralph, for putting me on the spot.
That's all right. Always willing to. What about your cruise experience then?
Look, I'll be honest. I am a complete landlubber. I have spent the night on a cruise ship very safely tied up at Tilbury. And, look, the service, I think, is fantastic. And I think what the cruise ships are doing, the product that they're putting out, as everyone's spoken about, as Andy's talking about the sort of future, I think it's fantastic. It really is. You'd be surprised to know I'm slightly cynical. I'm concerned that all this capacity that's coming into the market, can they keep that sustained growth year on year? I'm not sure in other sectors of travel you would see that much commitment at this stage. I think we are still seeing a real boom in the industry, and that is fantastic. But can you get that sort of 19 to 40%, I think James said, in terms of capacity? Where's that coming from? Can that be sustained year on year? I don't know. I hope so. I think if anyone's going to do it, crews are going to do it because they are equipped to do it. And everyone's spoken about the sort of initiatives they're doing. Not sure I'm going on the nude cruise, but Crest talked about Fortnite, MSC are at the Formula One, so it is kind of everywhere. One question I want to ask my fellow panelists actually is, when did the psychology change? Because all throughout, I'm going to call it COVID, you can call it the big C, but all throughout COVID, cruise, as far as the travel industry was concerned, was going to die. Literally, here are all these people, in a lot of cases, trapped on boats because they weren't allowed to dock to port, and sort of a super spreader, and sort of everyone was talking about cruise will never recover from this, and here we are, a few years later, talking about an industry that is booming, growing year on year, adding additional capacity, getting new audience, new generation in. Where's the psychology change? Please, someone tell me, because I want that magic potion to put into other things.
Well, my personal opinion is that a lot of it's to do with what we saw post-COVID, which was bubble travel. And we were calling it bubble travel because people felt that they were in a protected bubble when they were going out traveling. So cruise, you maybe got into your own car, you drove to the terminal, you went through obviously the screening that we all had to do to get onto the ship, and the ships were all scrubbed clean for that week. So you were in a safe area where no one else had COVID, and you weren't interacting with anyone. There was less opportunity for COVID to get on board. I saw it also when I was in the Caribbean just after the end of COVID, had some time out there, and actually they were still suffering as a tourist destination because the cruise ships had started coming back, but they weren't actually letting the passengers interact and go to the markets and go to the, to the sort of the normal tours that they were doing. And they were keeping them again in this protected bubble. So they were getting into a, lovely clean minivan and then going off to see the sights and come back. So that bubble travel, I think, made people feel probably more secure as we were coming out of COVID and still feeling a little bit nervous that the bug was out there.
And one of the things I think that I also saw was that in 2021, the only real form of travel outside of the UK was on a cruise ship. You couldn't really go much further, and a lot of the cruise ships couldn't go to other countries, so they're just sailing around the UK and offering chances of people to experience it really at such a discounted rate. It was crazy. And I remember having conversations with people in 2021, early 2022, about how much it had, the type of people going on the boats had changed, and some of it had ruined their experience of travel because it wasn't quite the caliber of people that had been on there pre-COVID. But then at the same time, for the cruise liners, it was such an opportunity to grab the visibility amongst a wider market share that they never had before. Offering these visits on 3 or 4 days at half the rate that they would normally pay was such a great marketing opportunity for them. That's where you got some of those repeat bookers from. So, I mean, I've been surprised, and I think going back to the fact that we're going to see much more capacity on the market, it's not too different to what we see with the hospitality or the hotel industry. That where suddenly there's a whole load of new rooms and hotels are open, that just generally sees some of the old tired ones sort of leave the market. So you sort of hope that it's sort of freshening it up and making the industry better. But obviously at the same time, we don't want certain businesses to fail just because that there's too much capacity on the market. Well, guys, I mean, it's been great discussing this. I'd love to get, before we go, from James and Cress, your recommendations for actual cruises. What's the ones that you've enjoyed, or what are you looking at to experience next? I'll go first to our regular panelist, James.
I think if I was to go on a cruise next, my next cruise would either be the brand new Silver Ray that's coming out, which looks absolutely incredible, by Silversea. That's going to be more down in Southampton next week for the CLIA conference. So hopefully I'll be on board that to see that. But if I was to choose a route and an itinerary, for me, have to be an expedition cruise. I'd love to do Antarctica or Alaska. And I'm a big believer that what cruise definitely does is it reduces and gives you that opportunity, that friction of getting to a place which you couldn't get to by air. So for me, that's where I'd be wanting to go on my next cruise.
Lovely. And Cress, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I think I'd actually like to experience Icon of the Seas. I'd love to be able to take both my kids on it. I think, that they'd love it, because I think such a huge ship, so many facilities on board. So I think brilliant for them, and actually it'd be great to take the parents too. So he had some support on board. So that whole multi-generation, I think, would be great. But also, like James, I also love the Caribbean. So the chance of getting on one of more of the luxury liners. So I've seen the images of Explorer cruise ships. They look very nice. So I quite fancy one of those, but clearly without the children.
Wonderful. Well, coming up next, we've got the quick quiz. But first, we're going to hear from Ellie Fowler, the director of the travel business, of which 30% of their business is cruise, about what they're seeing in the market.
Travel Market Life.
Hi, Ellie. Thanks ever so much for joining us today. So you can give us some really good insights into what's happening with cruise business for yourself. I mean, what is the level of demand and how are you seeing this change?
Yeah, hi Ryan. So yeah, we've seen a huge demand for cruise over, I would say, the last 12 months in general. The demand is very varied. A lot of it is families coming through, so that's been a big change. Alongside a bit of a demand in river cruise as well, which is slower, but we're seeing a big increase in that at the moment. And yeah, just cruising in general. I think all age groups, all age brackets, multi-generational families, like a lot of that is now coming through. And I think ocean cruising in particular have broken the sort of stereotype of the older demographics that are cruising. That's been done away with, obviously with particular cruise lines. And yeah, we're seeing a lot more of the younger market, the couples, the families. So yeah, that's been the biggest thing we've noticed so far.
And what sort of destinations, what sort of types of cruises, where are they heading to that is most popular?
Biggest sort of increase that we see is the UK cruises. So everything really from Southampton, obviously Bristol now with Ambassador is very strong for us because you've got, well, it's so local, it's only about 40 minutes up the road. So really helpful. But it's funny, I know we spoke recently about obviously people not wanting to head up to London airports, but yet we'll go to Southampton for a cruise. And obviously we're down in Wales. So it's a good 2-hour run really to get to Southampton. But I would say that's where the most trade of our cruises are, is anything from, you know, taking out that flight element, and people just want that ease. They want that, yeah, just get straight on their holiday, no airports, no faffing about, just get straight on and yeah, be on their way. Obviously, given from Southampton, obviously they're not going as much for the long haul ones. It's more so like Norwegian fjords. We've got a lot of the Canaries, Med cruises. So yeah, anything that can be done really from ex-UK.
Now, I mean, you've mentioned that you've got a lot of families and multi-generational groups going away on these cruises. What sort of feedback do you get from them as to sort of the types of cruises that sort of really work for those types of groups?
So they obviously need to be very geared up for children. So, you know, as nice as some of the P&O ones are, they're not as geared up for children as the likes of MSC, Royal Caribbean, NCL, where they've got, you know, not all P&O. Obviously, you've got some of the newer ones now coming through with many activities. But yeah, they want lots going on. And a lot of that now, obviously, you know, the likes of them will have like the adult only areas. So what you'll find is some of the grandparents will maybe check into that part. And then, you know, the family, then the younger family will check into like the normal part or do some inside cabins versus some suites and things like that. So there's a bit of something for everyone. But, you know, say if there's the aunties, the uncles, the, you know, nans, granddads, they tend to want that time away from the chaos with all the children as well. So they've got that luxury then to go and maybe check into, you know, some of the adult only areas and let the kids run free then in the kids areas. The biggest hurdle with multi-generational is getting the timings right, because you've got to get booked so far in advance to get those cabins if they want to be like A, close together, or B, want particular cabins. I was doing a booking yesterday for somebody for 2026 and I had balcony cabins all sold out. And I just couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, that's 2026. We're not even in 25 yet. So yeah, it is quite tough. And, you know, a lot of families, you know, come, oh yeah, I'll get on a last minute cruise. You think, well, no, you can't. It doesn't work like that. So it's just educating them on being more prepared and organised.
Excellent. Wonderful. Ellie, thanks so much for sharing those insights with us today. It's been very valuable and insightful.
That's okay. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Travel Market Life.
Now we're back. It's a quick quiz, a best of 5, where our panelists are challenged on their industry knowledge. And we have our guest panelist here as well. Let's see if she can steal the show with all the points, shall we? Right. Are you ready? All 4 of you. Are we ready? Our buzzers.
Yes.
Yes, great.
Yes.
So question 1. Which city is the Eurovision Song Contest in this year?
Malmo, Sweden.
Claire, well done. All right then, good for you. That's 1 point. You don't get points very often. Well done. Okay.
Nice one.
You were close, Claire. Well done. I'll keep my eye on this one. Right. Question 2. How long is the world's longest flight to the closest hour? Okay, James?
I'm going to go with 17.5 hours.
17.5 hours. You're close. We're over to Will. Was that you,
18
Will?
18 hours and 10 minutes.
And 10 minutes.
Such an idiot.
I think it's.
Yes,
I think it's 19.
19. Okay. And Cress, do you want to take a stab?
I think it's 18.
You think it's 18? Well, the closest by 20 minutes is Claire. It was 18 minutes 40. So well
I'm on a roll.
2
Don't
points.
expect it to
Claire.
last.
Okay, question 3. Which city is hosting the Olympics this year? Will.
Would that be Paris, Ryan?
Yes, it would be. Well done. Okay, question 4. What year or decade was Machu Picchu rediscovered? Claire?
1950s.
That's a no. Who's the ding about? I'm losing it. It's Will.
I'm going to go 1920s.
1920s. You're wrong. There's one more guess. Go on, James.
1800.
Oh, Cress, you may as well have a go. He's failed
That's
as well.
a century.
Can you get this right?
1930s.
No. Will, you were closest. It was 1910s.
Oh.
1911 officially. Right. Okay. So, final question. Many Western world hotels skip the 13th floor in hope of avoiding bad luck. In China, which floor number is often skipped for the same reason?
I think it's 7.
7? No. James?
It's 6.
No. Will?
Is it 8, Ryan?
No. Yes, could you get a point?
Is it 3?
Oh, yes, you're the closest. 4.
4 is bad luck, of course. 4's bad luck in China. Oh, I should have known that. Yeah.
4. So, well done this week to Claire Steiner with 2 points. Yay!
Well done, Claire.
Well done. That was fast. That was furious. Thank you very much to our 3 regular panelists, Claire Steiner, James Clarke, and Will Plummer. And for Cressida Sergeant, thank you for putting up with us today and joining us as our guest panelist for the cruise edition.
Oh, been my pleasure.
Guys, lovely to see you all. Look forward to catching you again soon. Ciao for now. This is Travel Market Life.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music Sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.